Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Sportsman's Voice Roundup for the week of July 15th, 2024. Here are the stories we're bringing to you this week. An effort to ban all hunting, fishing, trapping, and ranching defeated in Oregon for now. And now we wait. Signature deadline for Colorado anti-hunting ballot initiative has arrived. Granite staters privacy protected with the governor's signature. Temps rise on the Atlantic red snapper season while Florida experiments with a better way. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders joins the Governor's Sportsman's Caucus. New opportunities for Ocean State turkey hunters. CSF-supported land conservation legislation signed into law. Let's get into all of it. Our headline, our lead story coming out of Oregon. On July 8th, Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation is pleased to report that as of last Friday, Oregon Initiative Petition 3, IP3, officially did not qualify for the 2024 ballot. CSF has been and will continue to be a leading voice against this misguided effort to ban all hunting, fishing, trapping, and ranching in Oregon. Initially introduced as Oregon Proposition 13, IP13, intended for the November 2022 ballot, this proposal would remove all animal cruelty exemptions, criminalizing hunting, fishing, trapping, animal husbandry, pest removal, and more. Thankfully, sportsmen's and farming communities united in opposition to IP13, which ultimately led to its demise, in much the same way our communities united to defeat IP3 this year. Well, it may be easy to let our guard down after two successive victories. Proponents of the now failed IP3 are expected to take another run at statewide hunting, fishing, trapping, and ranching ban through IP28 for the 2026 ballot. Oregon Sportsmen's Conservation Partnership, which CSF is an active member, including serving on the steering committee, is now actively developing campaign strategies for the 2026 petition, including a current poll effort, which includes a potential right to hunt and fish constitutional amendment in 2026. If the polling for right to hunt and fish is favorable, the strategy will shift towards going on the offensive and getting a question on right to hunt and fish to the voters in 2026. In doing so, the right to hunt and fish question could potentially appear on the same ballot as the anti-sportsman IP28. This will allow our community to simultaneously work to defeat IP28 while also proactively enhancing and acting protections for hunting, fishing, and trapping in the future. The victory was made possible through the strong effort of the Oregon Sportsmen's Conservation Partnership and its members like CSF, Oregon Hunters Association, Oregon Trappers, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, CSI, DU, NWTF, ASA, and many more. CSF President and CEO Jeff Crane said, CSF will continue our efforts in Oregon and across the country as we take the fight to the antis on Capitol Hill and state capitals and at the ballot box. Together, we can ensure a bright future for America's sporting heritage and science-based fish and wildlife management. So obviously, a great victory there on such insanity, but we can't obviously let our guard down. And I think the biggest takeaway here is the opportunity to potentially have right to hunt and fish on that very ballot and draw that contrast and draw eyes to that. It should, be stated. Such an initiative is no small undertaking, no small feat. It requires many resources. It requires a lot of collaboration on in-state partnerships and stakeholders to bring that to bear. Conversely, those that don't want to see a right to hunt fish amendment to the Oregon Constitution and would like to see a ban on all hunting, fishing, and trapping, they got deep pockets. They got pretty stout coffers, and it's nothing for these people just to keep throwing cash money at their initiatives. So the challenge we have as a community is coalescing our voice, our resources, using those resources wisely to find out Is there an appetite for this? Are our neighbors who are largely indifferent to us, will they support it? Would it make sense? I think if you hunt, if you fish, if you trap, and you have family members and friends that do not, you have that conversation with them. If that poll comes their way, you encourage them to participate, and hopefully do so affirming the ability for their friends and family to hunt, to fish, to trap, and maybe even looking at it from the standpoint of self-reliance, the ability to self-source food, healthy, organic food. If you can't wrap your head around hunting as a cultural sport kind of thing, but you can rationalize, well, this makes sense because everyone's got to eat, and I choose to go get a healthier option than going to the grocery store, then, perhaps that's a way to have that conversation. And certainly the right to feed yourself, I think you could definitely make that argument, and it wouldn't be hard to do, to bring hunting, fishing, and trapping into that conversation, and definitely a reason to have that constitutional amendment. Matter of fact, this should be in every state's constitution where it is not already done, unless it is a process and one we have to go through to bring it to the people and eventually, have it ballot ready and approved to even get to that point. So obviously hard work will be done, and hopefully that is an option for the ballot in 2026. We will report back as we get updates. Moving to Colorado on the cat bill, we've reported on this multiple times. Dan Gates has joined us from Colorado on a prior feature episode. So even though July 5th was the deadline for signatures to place the anti-cat hunting initiative on the Colorado ballot this November, the anti-hunting group running the campaign met at the Colorado Secretary of State's office on Wednesday, July 3rd, and submitted early due to the Independence Day holiday. The group claimed that they submitted 188,000 signatures and seemed confident in their press release that they crossed the required approximate 150,000 valid signature threshold. Sporting conservation community had an observer on hand to witness the submissions, reporting a lower than average amount of boxes of ballots, as well as many boxes that appeared light, indicating that that they may not have been full. We do know that the anti-hunting group primarily utilized volunteers for signature gathering and professional signature gathering companies for a much smaller percentage. This is important because signature validity rate for volunteers is typically lower than that for signatures collected by professionals. Secretary of State will conduct random checks of a portion of the submitted signatures and, using a formula, determine whether or not anti-hunting group has met the legal threshold necessary to place the initiative on the ballot in November. We expect the Secretary of State's office to report their findings within the next few days. In the meantime, the sporting conservation community is preparing to challenge the validity of the signatures if necessary, in an effort which will consume further financial resources. If you're interested in contributing to the effort to stop this ballot initiative, please visit Colorado's Wildlife Deserve Better, the organization created by our in-state coalition to oppose this attack, and make a donation. CSF will continue to monitor and support this rapidly evolving situation in Colorado. Now, you can go to this article on congressionalsportsmen.org. There is a link for Colorado's Wildlife Deserves Better, or you can make that donation if you so choose. So it was interesting on this. Some media outlets in our space had reported doom and gloom on this, that it was all over. Definitely this was a done deal and cats are, not going to be able to hunt it. So, I mean, it just having the facts, and then it just, this really goes with anything. Vet your sources, even though they've got popular brand names on their company, doesn't make them right. And quite honestly, there's just a lot of clickbait out there, but Consider CSF a trusted source. We go through an intensive review process and make sure the information we're putting out is correct and factual, really short of any editorialization, like some other folks get on the socials there. So all that to say, subscribe to this EPUB, and you're going to get it from a damn good source that is the Sportsman's Voice, EPUB, and obviously here on the podcast. So all is not lost. There's still an opportunity here to fight this, and we encourage people to do so. Heading to my home state of New Hampshire, an update on HB 1186. This was the act relative to firearm purchasers' privacy and the merchant category coding. And Governor Chris Sununu, the Governor Sportsman's Caucus chair, did sign that into law last Friday afternoon. It was great to see that come across as breaking news on my end, and be able to bring this to you as quickly as possible this week and report that good news. So that means not only New Hampshire citizens, but people coming over the border to shop tax-free in the Granite State, if they're going to a Bass Pro or a local mom and pop that sells firearms and ammo, whether you're buying firearms and ammo, you're doing your shopping there at that store, you will not be discriminated because of your purchasing practices. And matter of fact, it'll be unlawful for the card company to do so for sales in New Hampshire. There have been a few other proactive initiatives across the country. We celebrate and support those. Conversely, as highlighted, I think on the last update, New York has decided to go the complete opposite way, and they are looking to implement merchant category coding and track your purchases, create a soft registry, some would say, but at a very minimum, tracking your purchases and violating the privacy of you, the consumer. So good news in New Hampshire, maybe not so good news in New York. We continue to fight and oppose over there, but a big thank you to the governor in New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, for making that law. Great win. Temps rise on Atlantic red snapper season while Florida experiments with a better way. Coming from our friend Chris Horton, who you all have gotten to know quite a bit here. Let's get into the red snapper season. What was the red snapper season? 2024. On July 11th, a day prior to the entire recreational red snapper season, in the South Atlantic Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus member Congressman Russell Fry and 18 of his congressional colleagues sent a letter to the head of NOAA expressing their frustration with the one-day season for red snapper in 2024. As CSF has reported previously, much of the reason why we have such a short season in the South Atlantic is due to the federal survey that poorly estimates angler catch and effort. Despite the highest red snapper population abundance ever recorded, the 2024 season in the South Atlantic was measured in mere hours, whereas in the Gulf of Mexico, 2024 red snapper season will be measured in months for each of the states. The underlying reason for the highly disparate season structure rests with recreational landings data between the two regions. Recreational anglers in the Gulf were facing a similar melting point not too long ago, so each state took charge and began developing their own recreational data program to supplement or replace MRIP, which was never intended for in-season management. The experiment turned out to be very successful, and we've reported on this in the past, so if this sounds repetitive, you have heard this. While CSF will continue to push for better data collection programs at the state level to get out of this increasingly shrinking federal fisheries management box in the South Atlantic, also highly supportive of a new effort by the state of Florida to explore innovative management approaches. Through a series of approved, exempted fishing permits, a few lucky anglers will have an opportunity to harvest red snapper outside of the one-day season while providing important data to improve management in the future. Visit Florida's Atlantic red snapper exempted fishing permit project to learn more and apply today. Again, linked there in the EPUB, congressionalsportsman.org. Find the article, find the link, go there now if you're interested. Solid news out of Arkansas. In early July, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders officially became the 29th active member of the Governor Sportsmen's Caucus. As part of the GSC, Governor Sanders is now a member of a bipartisan network designed to further protect and advance our time-honored outdoor traditions. Since 2009, the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation has worked with GSC members as a final line of defense in support of our rights as hunters, anglers, and trappers, and recreational shooting sports participants. Governor Sanders follows a strong history of GSC membership in Arkansas, which most recently includes former Governor Asa Hutchinson, who served as the GSC chair. Among the most passionate and active sportsmen and women within the GSC, CSF is excited for the opportunity to strengthen our relationship with Governor Sanders and her team as we look forward to working on behalf of the natural state's sportsmen and women. Welcome, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We're so glad to have you and your support, and certainly know passion and leadership will do great things in Arkansas for our sporting community. Heading to Rhode Island. Good news in Rhode Island. Earlier this year, Rhode Island Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus co-chair Senator Gordon Rogers introduced Senate Bill 2154, an act relating to fish and wildlife birds, which allows for the taking of wild turkeys by using a crossbow. A House bill was also introduced. Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus Minority Leader, Caucus Co-Chair Representative Michael Chippendale. We got involved on this early, and supported and submitted testimony, and happy to report that turkey hunters will now be able to take wild turkey during the spring season, and it allows and it brings the seasons in line in the fall to get rid of the confusion. Hunters will be able to do the same thing in the fall with crossbow turkey while they're deer hunting, things like that. So that's great. It's an opportunity to increase access for anybody wanting to use a crossbow, to change it up. The modern day crossbow technology is such that it is extremely ethical and lethal, and presents another platform for sportsmen and women to be proficient, to be comfortable with. It's just a great opportunity. So Rhode Island joining many states over the last decade that have made the same changes. I can tell you in New Hampshire, this very thing was done. Same thing in Maine. They added crossbows to the definition of archery equipment to clear up some confusion. New Hampshire allows the use of crossbow during deer archery season and fall turkey season and specific wildlife management units to clear up some of the confusion there. So again, as we continue to stack up these wins, it's just another increase of access and ability for people to do what they want and how they want with more options to participate. And I mean, sure, it goes without saying too, some of the sporting community that, can't pull a bow back or don't have the ability or the strength to do that, this certainly allows for it. So, removing barriers to get people back in, that's a good thing. And we certainly congratulate Senator Rogers, Representative Chippendale, and the Rhode Island Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus for their leadership and providing new opportunities in Rhode Island. Last, CSF-supported land conservation legislation signed into law last year. North Carolina Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus member Representative Stephen Ross, along with former caucus co-chair Representative John Bell, current caucus co-chair Representative Michael Ray, and caucus member Representative Jimmy Dixon, introduced legislation to support land conservation efforts in the state. Originally written as a standalone bill, the provisions from House Bill 290 that protect North Carolina's Military and Working Lands Act were included in Senate Bill 355, the North Carolina Farm Act of 2024. Section 15 of the Farm Act offers state income tax credits to landowners who donate interest in real property for conservation purposes. On May 23rd, CSF submitted testimony in support of Section 15 to the House Committee on Agriculture. The Farm Act was signed into law by Governor Sportsman's caucus member, Governor Roy Cooper, on July 3rd. GSC stepping up this week. Love it. With the passage of the Farm Act, private landowners in the Tar Heel State will be able to receive tax credits for their conservation efforts for the first time in 11 years. Sunsetting in 2013, a previous version of the state income tax program led to a 20% increase in overall land donations and is credited with protecting 250,000 acres in North Carolina. CSF thanks North Carolina Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus and our partners, such as the Nature Conservancy in North Carolina, for their support to conserve North Carolina's hunting and fishing traditions for future generations. That's all good news this week. All good news. Mostly. Yeah. We'll take it. It's been really weird, and we'll take some good news. So we always appreciate you checking in, bringing us along for your day. We are back on regularly scheduled programming, which means tomorrow we drop a feature presentation. We're talking Rigs to Reef, joined once again by Chris Horton, Congressman Garrett Graves out of the state of Louisiana. We will cover Rigs to Reef, and it's a pretty neat idea. If you haven't tuned in the past and heard us reporting on it and heard Chris talk about it and my enthusiasm for it, you'll want to tune in. It's not a terribly long episode, pretty easy to digest, and I think it's a pretty awesome concept. So tune in tomorrow for that feature. And we got a whole lot of cool stuff working towards hunting season coming up. And yeah, we'll tease that out as we can. Don't want to go too long on this out. Last bit of housekeeping, the registration for our NASC Summit in Baton Rouge is open for early bird registration. So you're going to want to get in on that if you're planning to attend, save some cash. That's always a good thing. And let us know you're coming. Should be a good few days down there in Louisiana. Yeah. That's it for now. I'm sure there's plenty more to say, but don't want to let it run long. So tune in tomorrow, feature presentation. And then, yeah, we'll get back here next Wednesday and do it all over again. The news never stops. Even if the sessions are closed, we still got plenty of stuff to report on. And we're bringing in the latest, greatest, not so greatest sometimes information. And you can be sure that CSF is a trusted source and resource. We're not going to offer you clickbait, folks. We're just going to tell it like it is and our efforts and what's going on. So when you subscribe, when you listen to this podcast, you can trust the information you're receiving here. And we thank you for doing so. We will see you tomorrow and then next Wednesday for another look at the news around the nation. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. So long. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.